Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Uncommon Sense number 24. It's Craig Kimanis and Dean Holmes here with you with our final edition of Uncommon Sense for the year. How you going, Dean?
G'day, Craig. Thank you.
That's
We've done it for the whole year, which has been supremely exciting to get through to the end. And we're doing a little bit of reflective, as most people do, towards the end of the year, be it New Year's Eve with a couple of beers, or earlier if you're in business, of spending a little bit of time reflecting on some of the aspects of business and life, and today specifically about some of the things that were great that we did with UncommonCents, a couple of times when we stuffed up, and also what we've got in
those
store
things.
for next year.
But before you do that, Dean, I just want to say, mate, number 24 today, like I remember before we started this, you threw down the challenge to us and said, let's just start Uncommon Sense. Let's see how we go. But the only thing that has to occur is we have to do it every fortnight to the end of the year. And we've made it. And, mate, I've done it in Adelaide, in my office. I've done it in Sydney. I've tried to do it at 30,000 feet on Qantas Wi-Fi, which wasn't quite successful, which we'll talk about a bit later. I think I've managed to take this, take Uncommon Sense on the road enough. But, mate, I just want to say thank you for throwing out a challenge that made us feel uncomfortable. And as that countdown timer was going today, so for those of you playing along at home or watching live on LinkedIn, you see a little part of the countdown timer. Dean and I see about 30 seconds. And I still remember back to episode 1 when that countdown timer was going and sitting there going, what the hell am I doing? What are we doing? Are we nuts? I had lists of paper everywhere of things to talk about and all of that kind of thing. And today at number 24, mate, we literally now are in essence in a way of running this that, we're much more relaxed and firing away. And that's, mate, because you put the challenge to us. So well done.
Thank you. And the challenge of the number was always this idea that you need to do things for a certain period of time, and that's going back to the 30 days to break a habit, or now it's 50 days or 100 days to do something. And there's a guy running around at the moment talking about doing something consistently for 100 days. And I really think that that's however long you think you should do something for, before you decide that it doesn't work, you need to double or triple it or even more in order to actually have that perseverance to just keep doing it. So thank you to the number of listeners, some of which we know and some of which are ourselves. But also the other surprising thing has been that we turned Uncommon Sense into a podcast.
Yes.
So you can listen to that on your favorite podcast provider, and that's free. It also goes to YouTube, and so people watch us on YouTube as well. And when we look back, we've found that people have watched it many months after we did a particular episode. And the great thing is we've got this library of ideas that we've had over the time, and interviews with people, which has been great as well, where we've actually been able to capture and sort of talk back to a couple of the other things that we've spoken about. So we're just going to run through, Craig, a bit of a reflective of a couple of the key things that we spoke about over the year that kind of resonated a lot with the audience, kind of had the most views, but also a little bit of fun along the way. So the first one we did right quite back at the start, Craig. And whenever I talk to clients, there's two things or two categories of problems that they always fall into. And it's either a people problem or a process problem. And you can distill things down into each of those categories. But under the people, we had this conversation about right people and right seats, which is a Jim Collins story from when research from when he wrote the book and spoke about lots of corporates love to talk about whether you're on the bus or off the bus. But it's still really relevant, Craig, for small businesses as well, even if a team of 2 or 3, to be thinking in this way.
Yes.
Over to you. What have you thought about when you think about right people, right seat, and talk to business owners about it? What's your thoughts?
So let me start with this. If you live in Sydney, or if you get the chance to visit Sydney, you need to go and buy a coffee from Batch Espresso on Pitt Street. Because if you want to know what the right person in the right seat looks like, there is a live, living example every single morning that that coffee shop is open, Dean. They have the right people on the coffee machine making the coffees. They have the right person greeting and taking orders and making people feel really comfortable about being there. They have the right people back of house doing the toast and all of those other things that are important as well. And it's just a system that absolutely works. And when you watch it, it's because no one deviates from their role.
Mm,
They've clearly
mm,
worked out who's strong at what they do, who's the right person to do it, and they do not deviate and they do not shift, regardless of how busy they get, regardless of whether there's no clients there. No one tends to leave their post, if you
mm.
like,
Yep.
because that's what their job is in that function. And there's no reason why every single business that runs, including advice businesses, can't learn from that in terms of making sure that they've got the right people doing the
Ab-
right role and not shifting from it. That's the challenge. Don't shift
Absolutely. Yeah.
away.
Don't shift. Yeah, and so there's a couple of things to that we want to think about there is like the fact that you've got the understood each of the silos of operations. So using that same thing like the right seat. But the most important thing there is that they're selling a coffee which you can get pretty well anywhere in Sydney, and it be
Correct.
every coffee in Sydney, sorry Melbourne, is like an 8 out of 10, and so the reason why Craig goes back to that particular cafe every time that he's in Sydney is all around the experience, which is driven by the people. But if it was just a lovely person with an awful coffee, or you had to wait too long for your toast, the whole thing would still be subpar. And
Yes.
so we need those two things working hand in hand to get some results there as well. So, Craig, the next one
Yes.
is one of my favorite things that I stand up and blurt from the pillar when I do some presentations, and that is the SOA should be free. And this is many times when I've talked about this, everyone has a varying different opinion, and we're going to find out in the next couple of weeks as to whether an SOA exists or not, or what the format might be in the future. But the thought exercise I leave with everyone when I say the SOA should be free is, why in the world are we attaching a price and therefore a value to the worst document in the world? And the extended challenge of that, Craig, is that if SOAs were no longer required from next Monday, would you give away your advice for free? Which is the challenge
Absolutely.
if you've always for your life been attaching your price to this document preparation. So that had a lot of questions and comments, and has a great conversation over time with people. What are you thinking? Like, why do advisors still do it that way?
Mate, I think typically it's a historical thing, that it became natural. I think if you think through the banks, and where a lot of these people were trained and where they came through, there was always this, there's an SOA fee and an implementation
Mm,
fee. And so they kind of got caught up and trained that way, that, well, this is the document that I'm going to put the value to.
yeah.
And that's why, therefore, I'm going to call it the SOA fee. And so it was probably one of those things that was burned into people's brains, that this is what you do. But
Yeah.
it doesn't mean you can't innovate, and it doesn't mean you can't change. And what it's about letting go is the fear of going, if I say a price, will the client pay that?
Mm,
Um, and so if I wrap it to this document, it might make me feel a little bit better.
mm, mm,
Um, but the one thing I always say to people is, what right do you have to determine what the client is going to pay?
mm,
That's the client's decision and no one else's. And so I'm with you, mate. I love it. Like, and you say this to some people and they go, oh, but we don't just charge for the SOA. Like, there's all the advice, but there's the strategy. And yeah, but
mm.
you call it an SOA fee. So stop.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, if you actually charged for those other things and could articulate the value, you would have already stopped calling it an SOA fee
Correct.
and called it something else. Now, there's a variety of different things that you can call it, but you always want to attach the remuneration, the fee, to the thing that adds the most value to the client. And the summary document, which is the compliance document, the SOA, is typically not the thing that the client points to and says, out of everything that I've done, this
Yeah.
SOA is the most valuable thing. Which reminds me of a question you can always ask your clients, and you actually can ask it to anyone, even if you ask your wife when you go home tonight. Is you say, out of everything we've done here today, if it's a client meeting, out of everything we've talked about today, what's the one thing you found most valuable? Um, Obviously, it's not going to be the SOA. That's my point. But
Yeah.
it's actually a really great question to ask your clients to get some feedback, which is easy for the clients to give. So,
Yes.
the whole thing about going, oh, what's the most valuable thing? You've just got to make the question, phrase the question such that the client can easily answer it. And them saying one thing is always much easier than saying, what did you find valuable?
Yep.
So that was a popular event for us, Craig. The SOA should be free. Number 3 on our list of things to talk about in terms of our journey over the last year, we had our first guest as well, Lisa.
Yeah.
We had some technology issues at my side when we were trying to launch this, and I had 2 laptops going at the time. But Lisa runs Brandspark in terms of branding and marketing and positioning financial planning firms. So we had her on as a guest, which was amazing. We managed to ask her great questions, Craig, self-assessed, of course. She was our first guest, and we were interviewing her before she was a multi-award winner in terms of her marketing career through the AFA and IFA, I think, one of those other magazines. So, Craig, what were the top things you enjoyed going through that process with Lisa?
Well, mate, there's something first of all to say for the foresight of Uncommon Sense to find award-winning people before they actually won any awards, which was
I
fantastic.
thought it goes without saying, but thank you for saying it.
Just thought I'd put it out there.
Yeah.
The other thing, mate, with that was the part I loved the most was, brand your business in an essence that's aligned to you. You know what? If you don't like sailing, don't put goddamn sailing ships on your financial planning business's website, which lots of people tend to do. So I really love the thing that resonated is that you need to let your personality and who you are and what your business is trying to achieve really shine through in that brand,
Yeah.
rather than just having stock photos from somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we're able to do now, which may not, maybe this wasn't the way 5 years ago, but your personalities are allowed to show. The idea that financial advisors in history, maybe they always had to wear a suit. They had to be potentially clean shaven, which both of us don't fall into that category. You had to look and feel and act a certain way. You had to play golf, and you had to have it. Use it, own a yacht because you're so rich. You work in finance. So these old school things that Lisa was helping extract and removed from the industry by simply understanding who the individual is that's going to give advice. Now, she works for practices that might have 1, 2, or 3 advisors. So it's
Yeah.
about how she can get the individual personalities of those advisors onto a piece of paper so that a customer or client that's looking at your business, they resonate with the website before they've come to see you. I love the idea that doesn't have to be a lot, but it's
Mm.
amazing when clients know you before they've met you.
Yes.
Okay. And so a couple of things how that ends up happening through the fact that your website is honest. So, and I think of John Mancera here because I know
Yeah.
Apex got his done through Lisa as well. And you know who John is through looking at the website, even if you hadn't met him, for example. And then you get a few things around that, which is maybe a couple of posts or a LinkedIn or something else, and all of that is consistent across the ways in which clients could find you. Then when they're googling you, because guess what? Before you meet anyone, they're googling you, right?
Right.
You googled your new hairdresser, Craig, before you actually agreed
I
that they
did.
were going to sign up to do your hair again. And so all customers are Googling you to find out a little bit more about you. And if that story that they think in their head is then consistent when they arrive at the office, then you've cut out a lot of the crap that happened in the past about proving how good you are, because the client has connected with you on a variety of different levels before they've arrived at the door.
Yep. Love
So,
it.
and it's not about what color you like on your website or anything like that.
No, it's
So
not.
you can go back to this thing called the Internet Archive. I think it's called internetarchive.org or something like that. And it's actually a history of all the websites that have been up for years. And they've taken like a snapshot of it over the years. So we went back whilst I was playing with this and went back to Absolute Financials, our original business name, back to their website. And we absolutely had this beautiful old couple walking on the beach, holding hands, walking off into the sunset. And that was meant to be our image, which confirmed that we were great retirement financial planners. We don't have that website anymore. Good. All right. Number 4 was a fun one. This is a fun one. This is 2 things to share in this regard. So this is a little bit in the blooper world. So the first blooper that happened, which I'll share on the screen now for those that are watching live, this is when Craig tried to do LinkedIn from 30,000 feet at Qantas. And so it didn't work, is the reality. And so I had to have a photo of Craig on the screen the whole time whilst doing LinkedIn Live on my own, because that was a little bit of a logistic fail. So that was one
You
thing.
obviously picked a great photo, mate. Thank you.
Well, exactly. You didn't want me to put your most flattering photo. I know that. The second thing that was the second funniest thing along the way as well, is for 1 week only, which we're about to see as well. For 1 week only, Craig Kamanis had a beard when he attended UncommonCents.
There you go. That one, mate, was a little bit like my running career. It was excellent while it was there, but it was very short-lived and never to be seen again.
Yeah. So one of the things that it's up there on the internet for everyone to look at forever is Craig Cabanas with a beard. So anyone that wants to jump in and watch that episode, they can.
And I promise it wasn't coloured, Dean. That was
no, yeah.
natural.
And you started growing it. I know you started growing it the day before,
I did.
So, yeah. So in the vein of Craig had a beard and things like that, what we were talking about on that day, Craig, was this discussion about being self-licensed versus being in a licensee. And actually what we can reflect on today is actually a little bit bigger than that. Like, not about being self-licensed or licensed. If we take that one level above, it's actually thinking about why do you make that decision to internalize a function versus partner with someone? So it came up, the couple of themes of what comes up is obviously self-licensing is one that you can potentially cut a margin out. The second one that came up last week was about, once you have a certain amount of remote staff, should you set up your own remote staff office, for example, and cut out a margin there? And the third one that's kind of popular from time to time is the investment one as well. Like, let's set up our own investment house and do it. Reflect on those 3 things, Craig, and just give us your thoughts on why people need to think about that differently.
Yeah, and let's, I think the point you're making, Dean, regardless of the 3 topics, is I do this to cut out a margin.
Yeah.
And, cutting out a margin on a spreadsheet might actually give you a better looking result, potentially.
Well, Paul Barrett's got a spreadsheet that could do that.
Paul Barrett does have a spreadsheet, and we should make a special shout out to Paul. I did promise him that I would tell the listeners today that we know he originally launched UncommonCents, and we will be forever grateful to him for giving us this platform. So thank you, Paul. We love you, mate. But it seems like the margin can be cut, but then the truth has to come into it to go, well, what other things am I now doing because I've decided to internalize that? that I wouldn't ordinarily have done if I didn't? And is that distracting me or not? That's the big question.
Yeah.
It's okay if there's other stuff you have to do and it's not distracting you and it's not getting in the way of growing profit or seeing more people or doing what you love. But if by internalizing something, you end up doing something that you don't particularly love, and it's getting in the way of doing what you do love and therefore getting in the way of achieving the results that you want to get, that's when you've got to go, should I or shouldn't I have done this? So I don't, Dan, I don't want to get into the debate as to whether you should have a license or you should be licensed, right? Like it's a mandatory choice that every advice business has to make. It's one or the other. What it's about is going, does it allow me to do what I love still?
Correct.
Resourcing.
It's resourcing at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like if you're sitting here and saying, I love being a financial advisor, I want to do that 5 days a week. And then you go, but now I want to start up an investment MDA, blah, blah, blah. Then that's going to it's going to distract you 1 day a week or 2 days a week from the thing that you love. And so that may financially slightly move the needle. But also, if you actually did 5 days a week of financial planning properly, you could probably financially move the needle more in the area in which you enjoy the most.
Exactly.
And so, everyone's trying, especially in small business, we're all trying to spend our time in the areas where we create the most value and we have the most joy. So for most of the people that are listening, that's all about sitting in front of clients, having meetings. And the moment that you go, I'm going to try to manage a remote team to cut out a margin or an investment or a license, it's probably 10 or other, I'm going to internalize other functions. You're then finding that you're managing those other functions, you're managing more people, and you've lost your chance to do what you love more hours of the day compared to what you were doing before.
Exactly.
So it's a much bigger decision than saving a couple of bickies along the way as well. So number 5, Craig, we met a special guy randomly throughout the year as well. He's Aussie, but he lives in New Zealand, and so he may be watching today, although the time zones might impact him. But we met Cam Fink, who runs a course which we were participating in this year, called Look Less Shit on Video. And it's not about how you do your hair and how you present yourself, but it's all about practicing and building confidence in front of the camera. And so the way in which my wife tagged me on one of his posts, which was this amazing post that the context behind it was that the video was engaging and there was no sound on the video. So he was saying, how can you deliver a piece of content, which was probably 30 seconds long, that was engaging to the consumer, but he didn't actually say anything at all. So it was all about his hand movements, his face expressions, how he was looking down the camera, etc., etc. And what I loved about what I then connected with Cam and said, let's do the course. And Cam, Craig, and myself were able to do a version of his course and practice our craft, which has helped us be more confident on camera here, as well as when we started posting on LinkedIn and telling stories there. Now, Craig and I are both first to admit, before anyone else gets in there, that we have dropped the ball in terms of our messaging on LinkedIn. And so that's going to change in 2023. We've set ourselves some goals and we've got a bit broader accountability to make sure that doesn't happen again. But Cam was great in terms of kicking us in the butt to get out there and do the things that we intellectually knew we should be doing, but didn't want to take the leap.
Yeah, and I think what I love the most about working with Cam, Dean, is that the confidence he gave you that you didn't have to over prepare anything. You've always got a camera in your pocket. It's called your phone. You don't have to have the best place and the best scene and look your best. You just need to be, relatable and likable, and just take the chance to share your message and get it out there. And what started as a private chat group on WhatsApp with us sharing videos with each other then turned, he turned us live. And I loved how he gave us the confidence to also film wherever you were.
Mm.
I still laugh and look back at the very first time he made us do a public one, and I think I was in a Qantas club or an airport somewhere, and I was whispering, like,
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm doing this video. But what he teaches you is no one cares. No one's looking. No one's going home and saying, saw some idiot film himself in public today.
And he
But it's
was
a great way
whispering.
to communicate, and it's a great way to get messages out.
Yeah. Yeah, and it goes, if we circle it back to that stuff that Lisa was doing, that I was talking about with Lisa, the
Yes.
bit that it allowed us to do is that if anyone met Craig or I on the street, whether they're fans of Uncommon Sense or not, or they've seen us on LinkedIn, they have a window into our personalities in terms of the way that we think, the things we're interested in, how we talk about stuff, such that people will know whether they want to have a conversation with us professionally based on watching videos that we've sent out, obviously on LinkedIn. And so that one to many communication style is working for the context of letting people know who you are and how you talk and what you think about. And generally, of Craig and myself included, that we're really nice guys. So shout out to Cam if you're watching. Otherwise, we'll tag you in at 24 minutes and you can watch us thank you again and again. So number 6 was what did we learn? So, Craig, the context of learning is that we said that we would do this for the year, and obviously letting our live listeners know we're going to continue it in 2023. But what did you learn by doing this process?
Well, number one, it was habits are important, right? And so it's important to put something in place and create a habit with it. Number two is that it's important to have an accountability buddy, someone you can't let down. I'm sure we've both had a Thursday where there was an Uncommon Sense episode coming up, and you kind of went in your head, I've got lots of other things to do today. Like, it would be easy not to do it. But to have an accountability buddy, for me to go, I cannot let Dean down, I think has been fantastic. And the third thing is that I love that it's just been a bit thought provoking, right? Like, we used to joke that we've doubled our followership from 1 to 2 and all that kind of thing. And if I'm wrapping up the year on Uncommon Sense, the fact that I had an advisor call me and say, you and Dean provoked a thought in my mind today and I need some help. Can you help me? And we figured out a path and a solution to help that person with what it was challenging them. That made me really proud in the fact that, because that was the whole goal, right? This was a conversation about the things that people are thinking about, but, not necessarily chatting, and just the opportunity to listen and get a couple of ideas.
Absolutely. So the thing that I learned is the learning was that no one cares if you get something wrong. Maybe that was because no one was watching at the start as well. But no one really complained or challenged you that your views were completely incorrect or anything like that. And that's sometimes some of the self-limiting beliefs about doing this in the first place. Go, what if I say something wrong? What if I offend someone? What if I'm incorrect and someone challenges me on it? And so what I've realized is that everyone has an opinion, so therefore it doesn't always get challenged because we can talk about it that way. But also people just want to hear and only hear what they want to relate to, right? Just like the person you're talking about there. If I say 5 things but one goes through and connects with someone and says, yeah, I should think about how I price the SOA or not price the SOA going forward, then we've had a little win, as you said, Craig. So that's been really good. We've learnt the technology side of it, which is actually very cheap, easy to run. So besides getting these very large microphones that Craig and I both have, and Craig travels with his now, he gets an extra seat in the airplane for his microphone. But besides microphone, webcam, and a little light above my head, the technology is all in the browser. It's syncing to LinkedIn and YouTube, relatively easy to put it into a podcast is 20 minutes of work from Bentley. Hi, Bentley. I know you're watching on YouTube, so thank you for the work that you do. But the entire process has taught us that it actually is relatively easy to do it. And therefore, you can connect with your community, whether it's other advisors like Craig and I, or connect with your client community very quickly and easily. And so even if only 30 people listen to it over the period of time, you've managed to let 30 people know a point of view and an idea or a series of ideas, and you can run with it. So I think that's been really good learning just from the practicalities as well, Craig, of how you make all of these elements happen from a business as well. So what's 2023 got in store for us?
Well, mate, obviously we're going to be resuming Uncommon Sense.
Daily?
Daily, why not? Let's not be silly.
Fortnightly Uncommon Sense will continue.
I suggest we'll be back from February as we get into the full swing of things. But also Dean and I have been working on some what we call passion projects together, which is all about helping advice businesses and things. And so I think in 2023 we'll have some really exciting stuff to launch around how we're going to help advice businesses, and maybe keep your eye out on LinkedIn, Dean, next week, where we might get a bit of a teaser and a hint about what it is that we might be releasing to the world of advice and advice firms.
Yeah, absolutely. And the hint of next week reconfirms that nobody cares, and it's all a bit of fun from that perspective. But we're really excited to continue to work and support advisors next year, and continue with Uncommon Sense. So if you're watching this going, we should have a particular guest, let us know who that is, or if you want to be on a guest, please let us know. We're happy to have detailed conversations on Uncommon Sense with other business owners, advisors, and just continuing to learn from our profession and external professions. So reach out if you want to do that.
Otherwise, that's a good point, Dean. So I was just going to say, if there's someone out there watching going, I even just want to be challenged to go and do a LinkedIn Live, to build some confidence, to give it a go, use our platform to do it. We're happy to have you on Uncommon Sense. Just come and join us and we'll think of something to talk about.
Yep. Absolutely. It would be incredibly valuable if we brought an advisor on and Craig and I interviewed you about your business and why you do what you do, and then you sent that to clients. Exactly. Clients would love that. So there's the that's the first episode in January. First advisor that's listening that emails Craig or myself, it'll all be timestamped. We'll do a dedicated Uncommon Sense episode to that, interviewing that advisor about their value, why they do what they do, what they're passionate about, and then we're going to send that to your clients.
Let's do it.
You'll send it to your clients, but we'll turn it into a good marketing. So we'll wait for that, but we'll wait for the email or the message on LinkedIn. But let us know who would love to take that opportunity as well. And I think that's it, Craig.
That's it, mate.
Merry Christmas. Have a lovely break to everyone that's listening, and to you, Craig, my co-host. Maybe we'll do this like Hamish and Andy style next year. So as we get more confidence, the pants come off, as Hamish and Andy would say.
Exactly right. Let's do it. Merry Christmas, everyone. Have a great break.
Cheers.